To talk with you today a little bit about what are our bodies responding to. And I was recently interviewed for a podcast, and this is a big part of what we were talking about, just in terms of my own experience with living with multiple sclerosis. I was, that's such a hard word to say. I was diagnosed in 2005, and I lived with really extreme symptoms at times. There were times where I couldn't walk properly. I had a really hard time cognitively. I couldn't get my words to come out of my mouth properly. In my mind, I still knew that I had my wits about me and I was smart. And in emails, I could talk really well. But to actually speak to someone and have a conversation, I couldn't get the words to come out of my mouth properly. I used to drop things like crazy. I used to fall, balance and coordinations. I may have said that already. Balance and coordination issues. I was tired all the time. I could have slept pretty much all the time. I'd wake up in the morning after a good night's sleep and I was still exhausted. And, anyways, the point is that I was thinking about what I was talking about with this podcast host, just in terms of what helped me be able to move past the way I was living before and all of those symptoms I was dealing with. And ultimately, it was recognizing that my body was responding to stuff. That's why I was having the issues I was having. And when we can take a step back and look at things, and this can apply to anything that you're dealing with. If you're dealing with symptoms as a woman going into perimenopause, maybe you're dealing with hot flashes or the change in memory. That's a really interesting one that people don't often talk about. There can be more sensitivity to your skin. There can be insomnia. There can be night sweats. There can be weight gain. There's so many different things that can happen. And a lot of the times when we deal with symptoms, we look at them as the problem. And this is something that I thought was the fact in the past as well, right? You go to your doctor because you have symptoms and they're like, "Oh, well, what can we give you to make the symptoms go away?" But what they need to be asking instead is, what is the body responding to? Why are you having these symptoms? And that's what, for me, I was taking the medication for the MS for a really long time. And ultimately, I was getting side effects from it because every medication has a side effect. Every medication has a side effect. It doesn't matter if it's over the counter, it doesn't matter if it's something simple that everyone takes, like Advil, like Tylenol, like all of those things. Every single medication is going to have a side effect or an impact on your body. And when we can resonate or recognize, there's the word, when we can recognize that the symptoms that you're having are your body responding to something. So if you're dealing with migraines, why are you dealing with the migraines? What is your body seeing as a trigger that's causing that to happen? And ultimately, when we can learn to recognize that the reason we're having symptoms is because our body is triggered by something. We deal with a lot of chemicals and toxins and other things in our environment every single day. I'm currently on two screens, and EMF or radiation are really big contributors to toxic burden for people. There's chemicals in our food. There's chemicals in our water supply. There's chemicals in all of our beauty care products, personal care products, feminine products. There are chemicals around us and on us, especially if you put cream on your skin or anything that you put on your skin, you're going to absorb into your body. And all of these chemicals and toxins, eventually the body just can't handle it anymore. So if you've been dealing with any symptoms, that's where I want to ask you to step back and think like, okay, what is going on? What is different in my life? What has changed? Or is there a reason why my body can no longer handle the things that it's been dealing with? This is a big part of why a lot of the times women will have a harder time with symptoms when they get into their 40s, because there are shifts and changes that are happening in our system with our hormones throughout this phase of life. But this is often a time where hormones are just blamed for the changes that you're feeling. So the changes in your cycle, the hot flashes that I mentioned, the mood changes, the changes in libido, hormones are connected to this, but hormones aren't ultimately the root cause. What is causing your hormones to not be at the levels that they're supposed to be so that you're able to function properly? So this is where, like I said, we need to start asking why. You're maybe going to get tired of me saying this over and over and over again, but this is what's missing a lot of the times. That was what's missing for me in the past, working with medical doctors, working with other practitioners as well, that were just like, okay, well, what can we give you to make these symptoms go away? What can we give you so that you sleep better? What can we give you so that you don't have the memory problems or so that you're not falling asleep on the drive home? What can we give you to make the symptoms go away? But ultimately, we need to figure out why the body is having them to begin with. And if you're dealing with a lot of toxins and chemicals and metals and radiation and stress and all of these other things, your system is going to get to the point where it's not able to keep up and it's not able to handle it anymore. And that's when symptoms happen. When I was in school, it was described to us as the barrel effect. So if you picture a big brain barrel, and, when life starts, there's still a little bit of water in the bottom of the rain barrel because we do bring on some chemicals, some toxins, some metals from our mothers when we're in utero or in their womb. So we're born with a little bit of a toxic burden at the beginning of our life. Some kids are going to be born with more than others, but ultimately there's a little bit at the beginning, but it's not a bad thing. We're able to manage it. It's when the water keeps pouring into the rain barrel over and over and over through the chemicals that we face, through the toxins, the heavy metals, as I said, the radiation, all of these different things that are ultimately attacking our system. And over time, the body's just like, I can't handle it. The barrel overflows, and that's when symptoms start to happen. So if you've been dealing with any health challenges and you haven't found a solution that's actually helped you to get better, this is where you need to find someone who can help you dig deeper and figure out what's the cause. Why are you dealing with the symptoms that you're dealing with? And this is where nutrition response testing or quantum nutrition testing is very beneficial because we can test your body. If you go to the doctor and you get blood work done, they're testing your blood. Yes, it's yours, but they're comparing you against a reference range. So it's not your reference range, it's an average of what they see. Generally, people that are in this reference range are relatively healthy. So, okay, we'll just use this reference range as a guideline. But that might not be what's good for you. Just because you fall within that reference range, if you're still having symptoms, in my opinion, that's not okay. There's still something going on with you that needs help. There's something in your body that's not functioning properly. So, this is where, quantum nutrition testing, nutrition response testing takes things to a deeper level because it's all about testing your body and seeing what's going on. Your body knows what it needs ultimately. We have an innate intelligence that unfortunately we've turned off over the last several centuries, not centuries, but several decades for sure, where we're not as in tune to our systems anymore and in tune to being able to listen to our bodies. But if you can work with someone who is able to tap in and figure out what does your body want? What does it need to get back into balance? It can be really helpful. So hopefully you learned a little something today. Next time you're dealing with a symptom, next time you're having anything and you're not feeling well, take a step back and think to yourself, what could my body be responding to? And it may not be something that just happened, which is what makes it kind of tricky. Because if it's food related, it could have been something you just ate. If you ever have food poisoning, it's often not the thing that you just ate that made you sick. It can be something as much as a day or two ago that you ate is actually what's making you sick at the time. So this is where it's challenging because who can remember what they came in contact with for the last 48 hours? Probably not many people, not everything. So to be able to talk to the body and figure out, okay, what is the problem? What is the thing you're responding to is really helpful. So kind of just rambling today. I recorded this podcast episode. It'll be out in a couple weeks, I believe. And again, it's talking mostly about, my experience with living with MS, being diagnosed with MS, and ultimately getting to the point where I realized that medicine wasn't going to help me. I wasn't getting better following the solutions that my doctor had, taking the medication that my doctor had, and I recognized that I had to take some responsibility and take things into my own hands, and making some changes ultimately started the snowball that rolled into where I am today. I've been symptom free since 2016. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because I want you to understand that if you're dealing with issues, if you're not feeling well, and if you're finding you're not getting a solution, there are things you can do. If you're not getting the right answers or the ones that you want from your doctor, it doesn't mean that it's not possible. It just means that maybe you're not talking to the right person. So hopefully you found some value in this. I'll be back on with you again tomorrow, talking about a little bit more about some perimenopause stuff and some things that you can do to help yourself with some of the symptoms that commonly happen. Um, and yeah, if you have any questions, reach out to me anytime. I'd be more than happy to have a quick conversation with you to see if there's some way that maybe we can help you and figure out what your body actually needs. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.